Hey, Emma.
Hey, Tom.
Um, we have both been working quite closely from home, haven't we, since sort of COVID? We've been sort of stuck in our homes, but working sort of quite closely together. I wondered if, amongst all of the challenges of working from home, there's any upsides from your perspective.
I'm actually enjoying working from home. So I'm in the unique position that during the COVID crisis, I actually had to move out of where my family home where I was living to protect my dad, who's at risk of COVID. So I actually got to move in with my partner. Not how I was expecting that to happen, but it's worked. I like having access to all of the things that I usually have at home to help me with my sensory needs and coping. Not all of them are portable, so being able to reach over to my bed and grab my 3 kilo weighted teddy is always a handy thing. And just generally having access to people I care about whilst trying to deal with all the stress of COVID has been really good.
Since you've been working from home sort of more full time, what kind of things have you had to try and do to make the most of it?
The first couple of weeks were really stressful because in the first week I was working from my family home and my parents weren't used to having people around during the day. So my dad got very excited to share things on Facebook with me, and I had to keep explaining that I'm working currently. One of the big strategies for me has been trying to maintain that routine. So even though I'm at home, I'm still trying to do the 9 to 5 hours that I would do generally at work. I've been trying to use my calendar, which is a skill I'm still working on, to schedule out what tasks I need to do and who I'm working for and when. I've found it very challenging to deal with the home life and work life separation because they're in the same place. I'm literally working from my bedroom.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a challenge because all the temptations, such as my handy gaming consoles, are right nearby.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot about discipline, which I think has been an interesting skill that I've picked up being locked up at home.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, that's interesting. Have you tried to do things to make it feel like you can separate work from home? So making sure you get up and go to another room to do something, or sort of taking a work top off and putting a relaxed top on, just to kind of add some other changes that might not be there anymore.
Yeah, so my bedside table slash desk is set up for work. So when I'm sitting in this computer chair, it's work time and I'm doing work. And then if I'm doing things that aren't work, I always make sure to sit on the bed. So it's a separate area for doing separate things.
Yeah.
I always try and make my lunch break. My partner, mother-in-law, and I have a lunchtime ritual now of watching an episode of Lucifer on our lunch break. So we
Yeah.
schedule all our breaks together so that we can have that 1 hour of just downtime and relaxation to sort of break out some of that stress and
Yeah.
deal with some of the challenges.
I wondered about getting out and about. Have you sort of found a way to sort of do little bits of exercise just to sort of keep your kind of activity levels up?
I'm a pretty anti-outdoor person as it is.
Right.
I'm not a fan of the outdoors. I don't particularly like walking as a form of exercise. But given that when I'm in the office, I'm usually going up and down between floors, I'm walking around the floor to talk to people, I'm usually getting a fair bit of kilometers in that way. And being at home, I obviously don't have that. So I discovered my partner was really into rollerblading. So I've recently purchased some rollerblades and am learning how to rollerblade in my concrete backyard.
It's amazing. That's great. I read a blog by another autistic person the other day that said they try to put in their normal work routine in their home routine, and it just didn't really work very well. And I think, we've had chats where I think our attitude of what's happening is that you're not working from home, you're at home during a crisis trying to work. And there's a bit of a difference there, isn't it, about how you manage those two situations?
It's been very different at home because a lot of one of my roles is actually being out dealing with customers, face-to-face training, and a lot of that's not possible with COVID. So I've had to establish some other tasks that I can do. It's been great downtime to get some paperwork done that I've been putting off because I've always been on the road.
Yeah.
But it's a very true statement that it's not working from home. We're at home trying to work and trying to keep the exact same routine as I would do in the office doesn't work,
Yeah.
because at home that's a high level of focus. Usually at work, you'd be getting up every hour or so and having a chat with a coworker or going over and picking someone's brain about a topic, which you can't do from your home necessarily without scheduling a Zoom meeting. Yeah, so moving in with my partner, I actually lost a couple of the strategies that I used to use, like having a nice long bath, because we don't have a bath here.
Right.
But I've also rediscovered some strategies that I haven't used in quite some time. So after hitting my low midweek last week, I actually rediscovered reading as a form of escapism.
Yeah.
I really love reading fantasy fiction and immersing myself in the literary world. And I ended up reading 9 books in 4 days. But my mental health felt so much better after that because I'd had that escape and I didn't feel so locked in.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting kind of journey, and not all the strategies that I'd use in the wider world work here, and things that necessarily work at home don't necessarily work as well because it is that sort of combined space.
Yeah.
But my good old faithful trusty sensory items are always nearby. Really helps in meetings as well to have something to fidget with under the table. The whole time we've been recording this interview, I've been fidgeting with my little fidget cube under the table.
Yeah. I've been fidgeting with my baby Groot as well. Yeah. So that's good. I think that it's clear that there are some strategies that you can use at home, but particularly sort of those passions that you have are good to deep dive into as a way of switching off. But for other people, that might be computer games. It might be Lego. It might be a passion project around whatever they're really interested in, that you say that they have such a value in terms of re-energizing people.
Very much so. So I've also found if I'm really struggling with a work task, and we've had multiple conversations about this between our 2 teams about don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay to take a break every so often and just if you're struggling to be on track. So I got convinced by an autistic colleague of ours to download a game called Animal Crossing. And I've actually found that doing 10 minutes of that can actually help me refocus back in on work or on uni or whatever I'm doing at the time, which is why the Switch is always handily nearby.
Yeah. Yeah.
But doing whatever the passion is a really good way of getting some of that energy back. It's not going to get you all of your energy back. We're in crazy times and nothing is the same as it used to be, but it's okay to be not okay as well. And I think that's an important thing to communicate is
sure. Yeah.
Do what you need to do to make yourself feel okay.
It's been interesting, I think, the amount of non-autistic people who are talking about Zoom fatigue. You know, they're kind of rubbing their eyes and saying how tiring it all is. And I think there's probably a few autistic people are saying, welcome to our world. This is how socialization feels for us. It's exhausting.
Welcome to daily life.
Yeah, indeed. We together have done some work, I think, trying to help make kind of these Zoom meetings a bit more accessible. And I think, you know, we've done that in consultation with our other autistic colleagues because we have meetings where we all get together. I think things like, for example, making sure everybody's comfortable with the technology is really important. So, you know, people aren't kind of worried or concerned or afraid of using something like this. The importance of sort of maintaining a predictable agenda. So you're not kind of rushing in, that you know what's going to happen. You have a chance to contribute to that. People stick to it, those sorts of things. The sorts of things where people try and get attention. So typically in a meeting, we might have a hand raising kind of idea, but maybe if we're sharing a screen and there's lots of people, that might get missed. So maybe we use the chat box and we allocate a role in a meeting for somebody just to monitor the chat box and things like that. I think we try and have shorter little chunks of time where we work together to make sure that people don't get exhausted so much. So perhaps half an hour and then a 10-minute break. And if we can keep chatting and have little breaks, that sort of maintains. I think there's still some stuff that I don't understand how it's tiring and how we can make it better. But I wondered from your point of view, you know, what have been some of the challenges of these kind of online connections?
Well, in the first few weeks, everybody was trying to schedule Zoom meetings for things they would have just walked up to somebody's desk and asked them.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where my day was 75% Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Zoom can be quite challenging medium because if somebody forgets to mute their microphone, there's background noise going off. We can hear traffic noise through people's microphones. I know when I've been with you, I've had the your son typing on his keyboard next to your computer as a background noise.
Yes, killing people playing Fortnite, I think probably is what he's doing. But
yeah. But that's kind of, and it's something that we wouldn't have noticed earlier on because we infrequently had Zoom meetings because we had the opportunity to have them face to face. So dealing with some etiquette rules that we've created for everybody needs to mute their microphone. These are the strategies you can use to get attention, and trying to limit the number of Zoom meetings in a day has sort of helped out. There is still that element of Zoom fatigue because it is a lot of eye contact with 8 people now instead of just one when you're having a conversation and things like that. But it's all about learning as we go. We can only learn how to deal with these challenges once we come up against them.
Indeed. And the sensory issues are still very prevalent in these sessions, aren't they? That it may be that one person has a microphone and then all of a sudden speaks loudly and all of a sudden, oh my God. Or that there might be a slight mismatch between the picture and the auditory component of a meeting, and that makes processing what's going on much more difficult.
And then you have people with really weak internet connections that start sounding like a robot where half the sentence goes missing, and that can be quite a jarring sound and quite a difficult thing to process through.
Indeed. Yeah, and I think we've come to the position now where we realize there's no one online mechanism which is going to work for everybody. It's just about assessing people's needs and preferences before and trying to find multiple ways to meet people's need. I think choice is often the way through inclusion, isn't it? That different ways to achieve the same thing rather than just trying to find the one solution for everybody. Obviously, we've talked about life in the room, in confinement, but you might have to get out and about, do your shopping, do those sorts of other things. And certainly, I know you're a very social person and you've had to kind of maintain distance from your friends. I wondered, what's that been like for you?
That's been the key thing that I've struggled with being in quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, is I'm a very social person. I'm an extrovert, but I'm also a very tactile person. I love hugging my friends. I'm very physically communicative, and not being able to do any of that has been one of the key points that I've struggled really hard with. So for myself in one of my jobs with Aspect, I'm used to sitting next to my colleague in whatever location we happen to be in and just bouncing ideas off him and being able to just know visibly if I can interrupt him. Being at home's been quite challenging because I can't see what he's working on. I can't see if he's in the middle of a workflow. I don't want to then ring him and interrupt him if he is. I can't see if he's in a meeting. And it's just generally, I can't just hang out with him and have that sort of social relationship. And I know for a lot of autistic people I've spoken to, or the ones I've spoken to, we don't necessarily do friends. Our friends tend to be the people we see every day, which for us is our work colleagues. And now all of those we don't have access to, or we only have access to through a medium like Zoom, which is exhausting. So instead of getting energy from them, it's actually draining my energy connecting with them. Yeah,
isn't that interesting? Yeah, and I think we've been talking about being with colleagues is helpful sometimes just in initiating activities at work. If you have a project to do, commonly what we do in the office is you just turn around and have a chat with the colleague and say, can I just check them on the right page with this one? And then you get going. And I think you're the sort of person who, once you're going, you don't stop, but it's more the getting going, which is the challenge sometimes.
It is. And it was something last week, I hit a really low point last week, and it was something that I was really struggling with, was just initiating any form of task. And I know after the big chat that I had with you, we came up with the solution of myself and my colleague having a Zoom meeting for 10 minutes at the start of the day just to get the ball rolling so that I could then continue on.
Yeah. Have you been out and about much kind of outside the house? How do you feel about, no, you haven't? No.
Only shopping. I do the grocery shopping on the weekend. So right. My mother-in-law goes during the middle of the week and I do the weekend shop to get what we need.
Yes. I guess, both you and I are trying to help the world become more autism friendly. And sometimes that involves structuring environments to make it clear what's happening. Going in the supermarkets and having little dots on the floor which tell you where to stand and things like that. I feel like, these are great, aren't they? It provides a bit more instruction, but I wonder how you feel about the supermarket experience now and even about the physical distancing and all of those sorts of things.
I actually love the fact that we have these visual structured supports in place in supermarkets now. It's just disappointing it took a pandemic to get there. But I like that there is visual structure for how far apart 1.5 meters is. Woolies has a great one that says stay a trolley length apart, which is a great representation. I love that there's signs at doors explaining clearly what the rules are and what the expectations are in the space. I love that there's somebody at the door that stands there and squirts your hands with hand sanitizer in case you forgot to bring your own.
Yeah.
The challenge I find is I'm very rules oriented. Having those clear rules are great, but when other people don't follow them, it makes me very, very anxious. And then I can sometimes feel like I need to step in and say something.
One of the things I was thinking about is about other folks going out and about perhaps shopping, and whether you had any strategies, hints, tips for people who are heading out and about at the moment.
Well, I think for me, what works is having a list of things that I want. I used to do the whole browse shopping where you'd go when you're hungry, walk up and down every aisle and come home with a lot of stuff you didn't need.
Yeah.
But going with a clear, directed list of the things that I need, what is essential for me to pick up, knowing exactly where I'm going to go and planning where I'm going to go. What do I need? Do I need a basket? Do I need a trolley? Making sure that I check the sign at the entrance to see what each store's COVID restrictions are, because some stores do have different restrictions.
Sure.
And then just following the rules and trying not to worry about every single person around me having COVID, because that is a common panic, is you hear someone sniffle and it's like, oh God, I'm going to get infected.
Yeah.
But it's keeping calm, keep your distance, and you can only manage how you are following the rules. It's important to remember that you can't control how anybody else does what they do. And it's important that you be able to control that situation yourself and be able to walk away. If somebody's crowding an aisle, you can go to a different aisle and come back.
Yeah, that's really smart. I think that feels like it's good self-protective stuff out and about. In a sense, it leads us to talking more broadly about the impact of COVID and the impact of the lockdown. I think everybody's struggled in their own ways. They've found perhaps a few positives, but there's been a lot of challenges. I wondered about you, particularly perhaps in the first sort of week of lockdown. How have you experienced it?
The first week of lockdown was kind of novel. I did kind of enjoy the fact that I could get out of bed 10 minutes before I started work, and I could work in my pajamas with my dressing gown on.
Yeah.
Until I realized I had a zillion Zoom meetings and actually had to get dressed.
Yeah.
And I managed the change really well, and I thought I was doing really well. But about 3 to 4 weeks into it, it's really hit me hard how much changes have happened, and my mental health did take a pretty big crash. It got to a point where I couldn't get motivation to do anything. I couldn't focus on anything. I was being a bit snippy with my poor partner, who cops a lot from me, my little safe person. And I found it really difficult, but I also found it really rewarding that I could open up to other people and they were relating to how I was feeling. It's not just me going through this. Even neurotypical members of my teams are going through the same struggles.
So it's been the reduced social connection has been one of the biggest challenges, would you say, in terms of maintaining your mental health?
For me, yes, but for other people, it's been an absolute pleasure and an absolute boon. I know a lot of autistic people who are absolutely loving the fact that everybody's locked into their house because there's no forced social interaction. We don't have to put up that mask and pretend to be someone that we're not and pretend to fit into the neurotypical world, which means a great reduction of exhaustion. But it also means for those of us that are the social butterflies, it's a big struggle. But that's across the general population. It's not just specific to autism.
There are, with lots of autistic people, co-occurring conditions. I think we know multiple friends of ours who are kind of immunocompromised in some way. I just wondered if, there are any silver linings that might come out of this, which might be, for example, increased ability for people to connect without having to come face to face and put themselves in risky situations.
I think that's a big one, but I also think a lot of autistic people have picked up on this. This COVID situation has reshaped how we work. It's reshaped how businesses do what they do, and has actually potentially opened up a lot of opportunities for autistic people who wouldn't necessarily fit in the travel to work 9 to 5 grind to have employment opportunities, which I think is a really big positive.
Yeah.
Because it's proved that we can do these jobs from home, and it's proved that we can be more flexible in working arrangements. And I think that could be one of the really big benefits of this, but also just more family time. Kids are spending more time with their parents. Kids are enjoying more time with less pressure around school. I know one of my friends, her autistic son is actually progressing a lot more because she's at home interacting with him in a way that he gets, and there's not that pressure of, oh, I have to do this task at this time kind of thing. They're being a bit more flexible about it, which I think has been really beneficial.
So do you think that that's an important piece of advice maybe for families, is following on from that situation? Again, I guess it's about being compassionate to yourself. You don't have to replicate school conditions at home. Try and create what's best for your kids. It's not necessarily the time that you invest. It's the quality of that time and the quality of the learning that maybe is going to be most important.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much nailed it on its head. But I've also found a lot of parents are concerned about therapy being ceased or therapy not being available at the moment and losing all of their children's progress. Honestly, the advice I've been giving to a lot of people is it's okay for them to just be themselves at the moment and to just give them the space to deal with the amount of change before you even think about integrating any of these therapies back in. But I've also been suggesting there's things that you can do in the home to keep those things going. If you know what concepts they're working on, make it into a fun little game at home. If they're working on talking about numbers, well, then you can do cooking. There's lots of different ways that you can work on these concepts at home, and speech therapists and occupational therapists will happily send activity ideas home for you.
Yeah, indeed. I think any form of therapy, it works well if it generalizes out into people's everyday world. So rather than just being done maybe an hour a week or something like that, it is something that parents can support, other people can support. So yeah, perhaps contact therapists and say, look, realistically, given what's happening, what are some things that we might enjoyably do together that would sort of maintain the kind of work that we've been doing.
Yeah, and it's really important to just remember it's okay to not stick to the schedule. If that's what your child or your adult or you need in that moment, it's okay to go, you know what, I don't have the brain power to do this right now. I need to go do some self-care. I need to play that video game. I need to have that phone conversation.
Yeah, worry less about screen time and just more about enjoyment, and even relationships is a good time to kind of do things together to connect with each other.
Exactly. That's one of the benefits of COVID is we're actually getting more opportunity to spend more time with the people we love.
Thank you so much. It was great as always to catch up.
Thanks, Tom.